Hi guys, and welcome to a new video, and today I'm just going to be doing a review on the Faber Castell Polychromos, which are these nice looking pencils here. So as you can see, I've got myself a nice selection of colours. I'm going to be drawing Eivor from Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Basically I'm going to be copying a screenshot that I took in photo mode and trying to, trying to deepen the contrast and the colours and just see how these pencils work in terms of blending, in terms of pigment and all of that. Now, I did a rather stupid thing. As you can tell, this is not a set of colours. And I did get two of the same colour because I'm dumb like that. But I bought these separately for £1.90 per pencil, instead of buying a set of 12 or set of 24, which are also available. I would say buy the set and then buy any extras separately if you need them. Because what you tend to do when you just buy them separately, like I did, you buy the colours you think you need and not the colours you actually need. So yeah, that's something to think about. In terms of sort of the quality of these pencils, they are very, very, hold on. There we go. That did. As you can see, nice gold lettering, name, company, nice sort of circular barrel. The tip is quite thick actually. There we go. It's quite thick and it's quite chunky, which is always nice. And these are all oil-based pencils. They're not the ones you see in schools. For a very good reason. No school's going to spend £1.90 per coloured pencil. In terms of who these are for, I would say they're for amateur artists, hobbyist artists, professional students, all of that. And obviously their biggest competitor is Prismacolor, which I couldn't get. I can't get Prismacolor where I am. Or at least I can't get it without going to Amazon. And delivery being what it is at the moment, I want to try and not buy online as much as I can. But yeah, these are the Polychromos. Guys, I don't script these things, I just talk. And I hope you enjoy this review. Obviously, I will be doing a voiceover when I get to the actual drawing. And yeah, so hope you enjoy it. If you do, leave a like, leave a comment. What's your favourite coloured pencil? Is it Prismacolors? Is it Polychromos? Which one do you prefer if you've used both? Which one do you know best? Which one can you get? Because obviously I can't get Prismacolors, so I don't know anything about them. Compared to stuff like Statler and the brands I've done before, Crayola, Tesco, how do you think these are going to stack up? That's what I want you to do. Pause right now, go down, leave a comment. Are these going to be better or worse than the Crayola and Statler pencils that I've already used? Hello, it's voiceover time. Right, so what you've got here is an incredibly light sketch that you can't actually see that well on the monitor. And what I did was I sketched it out normally, went over it with a putty eraser and just lightened it up so that it wouldn't interact too much with the pencils themselves. So what I decided to do first of all, and the paper I'm using is a 150 GSM sort of mixed media paper. It's quite thick, but it doesn't do all markers. It does okay with these though. I started off laying down a very, very, very light base coat of whatever colours I needed. I did it in sections. So I did the skin first, as you can see here, and then I went for the beard. At this point it's still very, very light. You can barely see it, quite honestly. But I decided to do it this way, working from light to dark. And working on it in sections until I was happy with each section before moving on. I gotta tell you, these pencils went down so easily. They went down like butter. They weren't scratchy or anything. They were very smooth. And I found that the wide sort of tip was really good for how heavy-handed I can be. The way I'm holding them, I'm trying to put a light amount of pressure on. Obviously, you increase pressure the more closer to the tip you go. But I've got to say, like for a first try of these pencils, for a serious try anyway, they were amazing. The colours, the pigments are amazing. They're very, very rich when you put enough pressure on them. As with most pencils, well, these ones are a bit sort of streaky at first. Obviously, when you're only putting on a light coat, they're quite streaky and you can see the paper through them. But as we get further into the video, you'll see what I mean by the actual layering is pretty decent actually. Now, as I said, this paper's quite thick, but it's also really smooth, which probably didn't help the pencils whatsoever. Because I noticed that, I've noticed in other videos I've watched, the paper generally has quite a bit of tuft to it, and it's a bit bumpy, and that can help sort of grab the pigment and hold it. This paper is very smooth. It does work, it worked well, but obviously paper plus my skill level plus first time using these pencils, it's not the most fantastic thing you will ever see. I will warn you that now, it's not amazing, but it's decent for a first go. Now what I did when I was sketching it, I sketched out actually where the shadows on the face would be, because I'm no good with that. I mean, human anatomy and me, we're not friends. But I sort of sketched out where the shading would be and the shadows, and then that's the sort of base that I used when I was colouring. So I haven't coloured in the entire face. I've only coloured in the bits that are the light dust colour. And I did that because I wasn't too sure at this point how well these layered, and I wouldn't be sure until the next step, and then I started regretting my choice. So far, the Polychromos pencils, they go down incredibly smoothly. I'm a complete novice, and these worked really well for me. Obviously, people with higher skill levels will know exactly what to do, and you'll probably be able to tell where I went wrong. But yeah, so far, first impressions are these are really, really good pencils. I'm not surprised. I did pay £2 a pencil pretty much. So, you know. So here we go now with the layering to try and see what that does. So these are now my mid-tone colours. And you can tell here on the beard, I'm aiming for more of a sort of dirty blonde look rather than bright yellow. The actual screenshot was taken at night in the game, and I'm trying to put a lot of contrast in to show that. It doesn't fully work, but it works well enough. So yeah, putting these pencils down on top of each other is perfectly fine. Some part of this image will have about 4 or 5 layers to it, and the pencils work really well. You can see here I'm putting a lot more pressure down because I'm trying to erase all the white spots. I think this is called burnishing. I think. Art terms. Don't know. But we'll go with burnishing. To try and blend them into each other. So I went with sort of a mid-yellow and a light brown at first. And I've got to say that the texture, I mean, these are so smooth when you put them down. When you rub your finger over the top, then there's no smudging or anything, which like I said, they're oil-based pencils, so you know, they are a little bit easier to blend when you put the pressure down. So back to the texture thing I was talking about, was that by putting these layers down, I could get an effect, a realistic-ish effect of hair on the beard. And this dark brown I originally thought was way too dark and was a bit of a mistake.
because I thought, well, it's just too dark, it doesn't quite work. So I tried to blend it out with the light brown. But yeah, later on we'll see what that dark brown actually does, because I think one mistake I made was I wasn't seeing the picture as a whole, I was seeing it in pieces. So I was seeing like the face separately, the beard separately, the hood separately, and the shoulder fuzzy pauldrony things separately. I do like how I got the sort of fuzzy textures and hair textures just through layering these pencils. I think that's really good, and I think that I'd like to practice that a bit more. I'm probably going to make a series of these where it's me drawing the assassins from Assassin's Creed, or at least maybe about 3 or 4 of them. I don't want to draw every assassin. Just 3 or 4 of the more interesting ones with more interesting clothing choices for me to learn. But yeah, as we keep going now, I'm on the hood, and yeah, this was an experience. Basically, the hood was where things went a bit wrong for me because I didn't quite realise how dark it needed to be versus how dark the colours I had were. And that's what I mean when I said earlier about when you buy them separately, you choose colours you think you need rather than the ones you actually need. This is what I meant. I didn't have a dark enough blue for the full range of contrast in the hood. It does look better than the screenshot, admittedly, but the screenshot was using in-game stuff and I have no idea how to use photo mode, so there we go. But yeah, this blue pencil took a bit of a beating. And it was at this point that I realised I had completely forgotten about the pattern on the hood. So I marked it out incredibly simplistically. I mean, it doesn't look anything like the actual pattern on the hood, but you know, I did it simplistically just to sort of show that I knew it was there. That's one thing I regret about the sketch, is I didn't make that clear. So I completely and utterly forgot about it until this point, where it's almost too late to do anything about it. One thing though with the actual sketch lines being so light is that it enabled me to tidy them up just using the colours and make it slightly more realism looking. It's not totally realistically looking because I don't do that. I can't do that. But it's as realistic as I think I can get it to be. So here we've got the midtones done, and the beard's looking really, really good. That's my favourite part of this drawing, is the beard, at the moment. Yeah, I messed up on that pattern, that sort of stitching pattern on the top. I don't know what I was doing. I really don't. The red is so pigmented. I didn't quite realise how pigmented the red was when I started using it until this point, when I thought, oh, this is really going to stand out. Which is not great because I don't have that much of a darker red, and I needed a darker red. Again, guys, make sure you try and go for sets rather than separate colours because you might not get the ones that you need. I then decided to go over the skin with the skin colour again, but darker, because otherwise Eivor would have looked like a ghost, which he is not. So yeah, and again you can see where I've left the white spots and the area on the forehead and the other eye, and of course on his nose. That's all due to mapping out where the shadows on the face were. I should have done that for the hood as well, because the hood didn't turn out great. But as we'll see, it didn't turn out terribly in the end. So now here with the shading, the full shading bits, I went in with the light brown and I just drew and coloured in a base shade. I shouldn't have done this, or at least I should have done this on the mid-tone section, just so I could blend it in with the light tones more, because then I went over with the darkest brown I have and there's a very obvious sharp line, which doesn't really work too well. Here's what I mentioned about, what I said earlier about the beard. This is where I thought, oh, this is where the dark brown comes in. This is where it needs to be. And I'm putting so much pressure on this just to get it to cover what it needs to cover, and it doesn't fully do it because I need more practice on that. But I went for this sort of very sharp, static shadow look because of the fact that using the hood, it does throw shade on the face, but the actual screenshot doesn't show that very well. I do use black, but not a lot. And the reason I don't use black a lot is because it washes out whatever's beneath it, and it doesn't really layer all that well. The black I had a few issues with. So where I had to use black, I used it very, very sparingly and actually tried to blend it in with the darker colour that I was using before. Here's my darkest blue that I could get. Again, I didn't have it dark enough. So what I did was, once I'd done this layer, I went in with the black, did a bit more, deepened the shadow as much as I could. I do apologise for how the camera is going, because I don't have an overhead setup as such. I have to hold my phone with a tripod, and it's not particularly great, but it does its job, it does its job. So then, to be fair though, on the hood, this is my medium blue that I'm using here, and I went over it entirely, and that went down really well with the light blue. I think actually this part of the hood was perfectly fine, and the beard is also perfectly fine. So those are my favourite bits, the hood and the beard. Go ahead, comment down below, what's your favourite bit of this entire drawing? The full image is available on my DeviantArt, my Instagram, and my Twitter account, or at least it will be available on my Twitter account. So, like I said, this is me going over my darkest possible blue. It's not as contrasted as I would like it to be. Not because of anything wrong with the pencils, it's just because I don't have a deep enough blue. And maybe I'm not blending it in enough because it still looks kind of cel shady, kind of sharp edges when I wanted it to be a bit softer. So that's something I'm going to need to practice on. I am sorry for the pixelization on this. I have no idea why that's happening. I'll have to sort that out. But you get the general idea. I did go in with the medium blue again just to try and soften out those very sharp edges. It didn't fully work, but it worked well enough. And the fluffy bit at the end, well, I don't know. I just tried on that bit. It's not great, I'll admit, but I didn't have the right colours. So I had to make do with what I had. And then with the red, I noticed that it was standing out too much. So I went in with the dark brown and the light brown. And I went in with the black as well and a slightly darker red. But that's basically it, guys. That's how I would say these pencils did really well for a first time. And I would definitely use them again. I would definitely recommend them to anyone who needs coloured pencils of a good quality coloured pencils. I'd also use different paper probably. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. See you in the next video.